Oh,
And,
good question.
we just discussed about present realities a lot.
Yeah.
And at the end, a lot of questions, and at the end, everyone clapped. So I think some people got the point, and it was quite a useful gathering.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah.
Even though a lot of people have their own ideas, and some people had studied quite a lot about Buddhism, and they find it so difficult, the idea of no control, not being able to control kusala to rise.
Oh,
anatta, very, very difficult dharmas as anatta, but we just kept coming back to this moment, seeing now, hearing, thinking. No one can control what is seen or what is heard now.
It's nice if you can report a bit about that meeting.
And how are you, Nina?
I'm fine, yes. A lot of work, everything.
Any help these days?
What is that?
Any household help these days?
Oh, she came this time, yes.
Good.
Yeah. So it's okay, yeah.
How are you, Gabby? Everything going well?
Thank you, yes. You too?
Yes, thank you. Is Ajahn there? Ajahn, are you here now? Not yet.
Oh, she says she's talking with Vera. There's an announcement, yeah.
Also in our talk this afternoon, when people brought up the questions, so of course everyone has the idea of following a practice and concentration, and bhavana's the idea of following a method or doing something. So unless one comes back to the reality now, impossible to understand that really there's no one who can do anything.
Yeah.
And people were actually even referring, some of the people were quite well read, and they were referring to the efforts and the Buddha recommending striving and all these things. But again, kept coming back to this moment.
Very good.
Very nice group of people. Very interested.
Yeah. 40 people, that's good.
And do you have any topics you would like to bring up today, Nina? Maybe if you'd like to start something, I'm sure Ajahn will be listening.
Okay, yeah. Well, we learned so much last time because Ajahn explained about the 4 floods. But I used to think, oh, it's just the same as asava. But it is not. She explained how deep it is, how deep ignorance is, and how deep panya has to go down to get at the real meaning and know self. It was a good point that we may read the Tipitaka like any book, but she stressed again and again that each word should be studied, and she demonstrated this herself so much, like virya, energy or effort. And as Sarah also said, we forget that it is great patience also, great patience. That is also virya. So I found that very, very helpful to understand better the perfection or parami of patience. And patience, kantinyana, is also mentioned in the teachings among the vipassana jnanas. And then Ajahn ended with, there can be more understanding of the different levels of no self. So we repeat the word anatta, no self, no self, but we forget the many different levels. And I think it's helpful if Ajahn would elaborate a little. She said in the talk to Vietnam, even seeing is very subtle. So this is a key that we do not consider enough the no self of seeing, and that there are different levels of it. So I like to hear more about that, not just hearing and remember the word. And one may think, oh, I'm not tired of listening again, hearing again. That is Virya and Kanti. But as Ajahn always repeats, it is by conditions and not self. So easily it is self who is not tired. So this is what I want to say. Yeah.
Good. Are you here now, Ajahn?
Yes.
Yes. Did you hear Nina's summary? And she had one question. I think your question, there was
I can
something
repeat
that,
it, yeah?
yes.
That there are different levels of understanding non-self, because so easily we just repeat the word anatta, it is non-self, it is non-self, but forget to consider deeply the meaning. Like Ajahn said in the talk to Vietnam, like seeing is very subtle. And even that, I realized I did not consider that enough. So it's good if Ajahn can help us.
You see that even we talk many, many times about anatta, but what appears now? Something there all the time. What about that which is seen? It's not a cup or anything at all. It's only that which can be seen. No matter we talk about it, use different word, but it's characteristic that it cannot be the object of the experiences in other doorways at all. See? So even that, shouldn't we think and over again before there can be more understanding of, usually after finish the talk for lunch, everyone comes in. See, everyone comes in. No reality as rupa, as we say, all are dhammas and rupas. But as soon as something there, oh, that person is coming in and out and so on. See, that's why no matter how much we think, just think about it. It can be panya only, which know how much understanding is there as it is. Because no doubt about the word, no one, if there's no reality which can experience any object at all. And it means the world, whatever is there, which is experience, is the world. So at moment of seeing, it's different from moment of hearing, see? But no thinking of it, not enough condition to understand exactly that which appears. Because we can talk about no Nina, no Sujin, no one at all. But who's there? And how can there be the understanding of what is it? If it's not Nina, if it's not Sujin, that which is seen cannot be anything at all. And the intellectual understanding is not enough yet, because it needs more and more kanti. When we use the word virya, it means the cetasika, which arises with almost with each citta, like stretching one's hand. Without virya, it cannot be such reality. See? But as long as there's something as destination to understand what is there now as it is, virya, just one moment or two moments cannot condition such clear understanding of it. That's why it needs kanti parami as well, not only virya, but only different degrees.
it will be a long time before we really understand what you are saying just now, that we don't consider enough and that there has to be Kanti.
Jan, we can't hear you. I think we've lost your voice. Maybe there's a microphone issue.
Yeah.
So we'll just carry on ourselves until we can
Maybe
hear you again.
yes. Something.
Yes. Nina, one thing that you said that when you mentioned something which sounded strange, you said you had heard levels of seeing, and seeing is subtle. That sounds a bit strange to me.
That's what she said to the talk in Vietnam, that seeing is very subtle, she said. So
I think it means it's
to consider more.
I think the point is that it's the understanding of seeing is very subtle, not seeing itself.
Not seeing itself,
and you mentioned when your first introduction something about levels of seeing. I don't think
levels of understanding.
Levels of understanding of seeing, yes. So it's the understanding of seeing which is subtle.
Yeah.
And one thing that Ajahn mentioned last time, which I was a little bit surprised about when we were talking about the oceans, which you mentioned, the ogres, and we know these are Kama-oga, the ocean of sense attachments, Bhava-oga, the ocean of clinging to being, Avijjoga, ignorance, and Ditta-oga, the ocean of wrong view. But she mentioned at one point that seeing and what are seen are oceans because of not understanding the oceans. So I think she must also have been referring to the clinging to seeing and what is seen.
Yeah, I was so impressed with how deep it is. She stressed that so much by mentioning the ocean and the four ogas. I had never thought of that before so much, and how deep down Panya must go to understand.
And as you mentioned, they're the same realities, the same Chaitasikas as the Asavas. But when the Asavas are referring to the very subtle and clinging and wrong view and ignorance that arises immediately, even in the sense door processes, completely unknown. But the ogres are the same realities, but can be so deep and so strong and so overwhelming.
Yeah, I was so impressed because usually we just read and don't consider very much about that. So she is really teaching us how to consider each word, but it is a really difficult thing to do when one is really beginner.
And I think Virya is very difficult because we have the usual translation of effort, and then we hear about Kanti. And when we're talking about the paramis, there's Virya parami and Kanti parami. And just now, as she was mentioning, even when stretching out, there has to be Virya, but there has to be the development of Virya parami, right effort, but also Kanti parami, patience. But sometimes when we read about Virya, like I asked about Virya's Indriya, whether this can be referring to Kanti, patience. And yes.
Very good point that you made. I was glad that you brought it up because at first I didn't get it so well. But when I was listening again to write a report about that, I realized it more and I was really impressed.
And last time, Tom brought up the point about how we read about Virya as consolidating the accompanying Chitta and Chaitasikas, that Virya has the characteristic of driving or marshalling, and its function is to consolidate the Chitta and Chaitasikas so they don't collapse. So this doesn't sound like, even when it's kusala. So can this be kanti? I'm not sure.
We have to think about the true nature, the characteristic of reality as cetasika. When it's just very little, without it, can there be more to be kanti? See, so kanti is really for sure the same cetasika, but it depends on at that very moment. Like kamachanda, see, it can be the asava, or it can be other moment like nivarana and so on. See, but exactly it's the same cetasika. So only one moment, at that moment, can we say that it's khanti. But when it's more and more to attain the realization, it cannot be just one moment of viriya, but it takes more and more from life to life. So that is khanti. So khanti is the viriya, but it depends on situation and the goal.
And it depends on the context, whether it is kanti being referred to, I think.
And if we think of the translation, I don't think that we can get it.
No, I don't either.
Mm-hmm. But
like
when
the example Tom gave about Virya consolidating or marshalling the other Cetasikas and the Chitta, what does it mean in the context of Kanti? I'm not sure.
we just sit and talk for 1 hour or 2 hours, is that virya kanti too? It is virya each moment, but when it's more and more to reach the destination, to finish the goal, it is kanti. Because sometimes we have intent to do this, but then we don't follow at all enough, and that is not kanti. Like some people read Tipitaka, okay, it's enough for me, and I don't practice and so on. See, not kanti enough to go on to see the danger of samsara and understand better and better, and directly to understand the reality as not self. Like now, for example, no one, no self, no thing. We all say that. But what is now? Something there, see? So it takes kanti on and on, again and again, until it builds up this very strong understanding, firmer and firmer, to not change. Reality is a reality, no matter it is for citta and what cetasika. Nobody can change. But the reality which we use the word cetasika is that which is there, perform the function as viriya.
About consolidating the other cetasikas, last time I found that Ajahn explained so well that also the other sobhana cetasikas have each their own function. So it is virya is not alone, it is together with the other sobhana cetasikas that are listening and considering again and again and are patient.
For example, we use the word appears well. See, without any understanding what is there now, does it appear well? And how well? From intellectual understanding to condition the direct awareness, to condition the moment of vipassana jnana. See, the same, right? Appear well. It is appearing now. But without the teachings of the Buddha, no one knows that it does not appear well. And even the word appear well has many degrees too. To what? Not to individual, not to the moment of not understanding anything at all. And to understand it, there are so many, many degrees. That's why we use different words, viriya and kanti. Can you find kanti without viriya? See? But to know how long it will take, not to give up. See, keep on. And what's that? Viriya Cetasika, which performs the function of Khanti. Each moment when it's conditioned to arise, to understand directly, correctly, whether it's I or not. For example, now, at this moment of seeing, and the visible object is not the seeing, it takes how long to understand the difference between just one word, nama, that which experiences, see? It doesn't mean that as soon as we heard the word nama, the experiencing, and there can be the full understanding of that, not yet. So this khanti, to understand with viriya, arises with each moment. So I don't think that that will condition the deep understanding of reality when we think of the word. But when there is the understanding of just one word, appears well, see? And who knows without panya, whether now it appears well or not. And how well it is, different degrees of understanding. Now, hardness is appearing. Does it appear well? Not at all, because it's gone. But when there's more and more understanding, more direct understanding with the direct awareness, it begins to understand the object. It appears, begin to appear well, little by little. Otherwise, we might have doubt about the intellectual understanding and direct understanding and the vipassana jnana understanding. And the object appears better and better, clear and clear and clear. That's why whether it is well or not is known only by panya right now. Thus the object now appears well. And when there can be the understanding of the truth of it, it takes viriya. It needs viriya on and on to be khanti, never give up. That's why viriya can arise with akusala and other citta as vipaka, depending on conditions. But khanti for what? To understand what is there as it is.
Ajahn, we also refer to akusala khanti. So can one say in the same way that when there is more and more viriya for a certain thing, then it conditions akusala khanti too, like...
but when we use parami or khanti parami, see?
Then it's kusala, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But we can talk about kusala or akusala khanti. So of course, when it's parami, it's kusala khanti.
And when there is no understanding at all, it cannot be parami at all. Only understanding the different degrees of panya, and then at that moment, what's there? Whether it's too difficult or it can be understood little by little, depending on panya parami and khanti parami and satya parami, nekama parami, all there. So if we don't mind about different degrees of cetasikas, it's all right to understand that why Buddha used different words like khanti and also parami too, not only khanti. And when it's panya, also not just only one moment of viriya, but it needs more and more khanti.
We read in the text that when viriya is an indriya, and we know this is only at moments of satipatthana, that it is an indriya, and it overcomes idleness. What is meant by idleness?
You see,
Context.
if one is idle, what motivated to study? To understand. So now, when it's not direct awareness, when it's not satipatthana, no sampachanya, it is not Indriya. There is Saddha now, there is Viriya now, there is Panya now. But as long as it's not the moment of direct understanding with direct awareness, it's not Indriya at all. So it begins from Satipatthana, and then Viriya, and then Pala. See, different degrees. And Buddha can use different words to explain more and more subtlety of it. But from the beginning, in the beginning, understand correctly of that which is not self. And then Panya leads to more and more considering to understand better and deeper. But as not self, otherwise one is trapped again.
Anyway, when it is of the degree that it's Indriya, then no conditions at that time for Tina, Mida, and other akusala
And
dhammas to arise.
And that can be the beginning of this understanding the difference between Indriya and Pala. Exactly the same Cetasika, but when it's just firstly, not many, not more, enough, not enough yet.
Not firm enough.
Indriya only before it can be Pala, greater than that, firmer than that. Until no matter what situation, it is Pala when it can condition moment of understanding. So one can understand the difference between dhammas which will lead to enlightenment as Satipatthana, Samapatthana, and so on, even but Indriya and Pala.
I read that Bala is unshakable by the opposite. So it's stronger than Indriya.
Okay, just the first moment of Satipatthana, is it strong enough?
It must be weak. Yeah.
2, 3, 4, until Panya is there, that it can be conditioned by the basic, the foundation of understanding from many, many conditions. And the important one is the clear understanding of the priyati as not self. When it's clear, it begins to be the moment of understanding it as not self. When it's still I, it's not clear.
Obviously, when it by the time Kanti is of the degree of Kanti Jnana, then it must be
Different degrees of Vipassana Jnana.
Yes. Zita has a friend in the discussion today.
Yes, this is my granddaughter. This is Zainab.
Sawadika.
Oh, yeah. She's so interested, yeah.
Oh, there.
Does she have any question?
No, she doesn't.
Later, when she hear more.
Yes, she's only 5.
See.
Only 5?
Good for her to hear even some words which have heard
She's
before.
going to listen.
So just
See, who's there? Who's there? That's what it's seen appear well.
You don't know.
does anyone have any questions they'd like to bring up? Because otherwise, Lucas sent some detailed questions which you would
Yes,
like us to bring up.
Yeah.
I can start to read them. He's sick, so he asked us to bring it up. His first question, Ajahn, this is from Lucas. Is not anatta, no control of realities, another strong excuse to be forgetful and do whatever follows and go blindly, everything out of control? So go with the attachments and with the current of life, unaware and forgetful, because everything, every moment of life is conditioned.
What is meant by excuse? See, each word should be studied. Otherwise, it's just only remembering the words and talk along without understanding about what one is talking, like that word. Excuse. What is it? What does it mean?
I remember that in Poland, this is perhaps what he's thinking of. Sometimes he might be late, for example, and he'd say, well, dhammas are conditioned and anatta. And I think you mentioned to him that anatta is used like an excuse, like a way to justify being late or doing as one pleases or something like this. So I think this is what he has in mind.
It's no clinging to the idea of self, me, there. No one knows because it's always like that in a day. From moment to moment, even the word excuse, it indicates the idea of self is so very strong. No one, see, anatta. So what is that? Clinging to the idea of me, of self, unseen. At the moment when there's no understanding of the truth, of the absolute reality as no one, that's why just to use the word anatta-ness doesn't have any meaning if there's not understanding of each word.
Yes, it could be like sometimes people say everything is dukkha, but it's meaningless, or everything is impermanent, but it's meaningless if there's no understanding of the actual realities.
Right. And the Buddha showed a way to have less and less clinging until it can be absolutely eradicated. That's why it has to be known, no matter how subtle it is. Otherwise, it's there.
I'll carry on with his points. He says, I mean, Buddha said about sekha and bhavana and practice and awareness itself, that also is against the current of life. I had heard many Buddhist teachers and all of them say there needs to be awareness and does not need to be thinking of names before. They say mindfulness of the present moment must be learned now.
Thus, he said anything to be understood as no one, and it is that moment of sati, but no one knows what is sati. Just want anyone to have sati, but no answer for what is sati. So how can there be condition for the reality which is sati to arise? At that moment, it's not understanding of sati. Just want to have sati and try to have sati, not knowing what sati is. So it's impossible to have anyone have sati without understanding what is sati, which cannot be controlled. This is the understanding of anatta. No one can make anything to arise, but has to be the understanding which know what is it that one cannot make it arise. Seeing, hearing, sati, all dhammas. More confidence on anatta. It's not the excuse. The excuse is the idea of self, the clinging, not the understanding of anatta.
But I heard a question also in Taiwan that people said, why bother? Why bother to develop kusala? Is everything is anatta and by conditions, and no one can do anything. So they misunderstand this.
Is boresome anatta?
Excuse me?
Is the moment of what you take from me, anatta, boresome, or why do we have to be bored or to
yeah.
develop the understanding?
Yeah.
It is not I. If it does not arise, how can there be that I that at that moment which have such and such reality there by conditions? What conditions such thought? See, while the other thing that if there is no understanding, how can there be understanding at all? It has to begin to develop, to be patient, to see the benefit. See, many conditions for listening, to understand the truth of each word of the Buddha. It's not easy. It takes time to have more confidence on just one word like anatta.
Continuing with Lucas's questions, he carries on and he says, because, for example, I don't remember Dhamma often in daily life. It's like a daydreaming case all day long. Even I am reminded now there is this very moment now, and there's no understanding of anything. So still I can't remember it for long. I forget again. What scares me that anatta is another excuse to just not be aware, do nothing, and it seems that we are all right with it, like saying, do whatever you want, let it be unawareness all the time, and this is good.
Who can have awareness all the time? So the idea of having it all the time is right or wrong. Is no I lurks there of each word, of desire, how, the way, the method.
Yes, I think it's all about even my concern about not remembering Dhamma so much and daydreaming. It's the clinging to self is there unseen most of the time. This is actually exactly what we were talking about in our talk this afternoon. People would like to have more calmness, more awareness, more kindness, and they think this is a good goal. They don't realize the unseen clinging to the self at these times. So when he says, what scares me is that anatta is another excuse, doing nothing, again, it's scared for the sake of oneself, I think. Because he goes on to say, so that way I doubt if ever I can get awareness and direct understanding. And the point is that no one gets it because they are dhammas which are anatta, which arise by conditions, not by wishing or expecting or clinging to the self. And one more question for you, Ajahn. is not Buddha, did the Buddha not say, be aware constantly and not be forgetful so later you won't regret it? Didn't the Buddha say that the path is against the current of life? I'm not sure.
Didn't he say as well? All dhammas are not self. Dhammas are dhammas. Each dhamma is different dhammas. No thought about that. Forget it, the truth. That's why better learn just one word at a time, very clearly, enough to condition higher understanding. And the truth is actually there's no one at all, no person, no being, no things. What is that? It's only that, only just for that moment, never to be there again.
It's exactly the same topic of our discussion this afternoon, wasn't it? Yeah. Just the same points, the same questions, yes. Would anyone else like to add anything or ask anything?
It is good to stress that it is all by conditions. Maybe that can help people who are wondering about excuses and anatta and what to do. So with examples maybe in daily life that whatever arises has conditions.
That's the point, and only if there's the understanding about present realities like seeing now, no one can make seeing arise. What is seen now, no one can determine what is seen. Or the virya at this moment, who can decide what kind of virya it is? Or whether it's kusala or akusala kanti. Everyone would like kusala kanti, but each reality now depends on conditions. So if there's no understanding of the realities at the present moment, there cannot be the understanding of the conditioned nature of those realities at all. Or there cannot be the understanding of those dhammas as anatta.
And what a person has accumulated from life to life is a very important condition. The way he's thinking and talking now. Because we usually think, I am talking or I am thinking, but it is all dhammas by conditions. So if we can help someone to understand this, it's good.
People would like to make resolutions. I'll just be kind to my husband or family member, and I won't be annoyed or I won't have strong clinging. But each moment, each reality is conditioned, and the accumulations have been accumulated for so many countless lifetimes. So who can know what moment now there will be clinging or disturbance? It just depends on those tendencies.
And even what Lucas is thinking now and asking now, what to do about no self, also that is conditions.
Yes. Whether there's thinking about not self or not thinking about it, whether there is reflecting on the Dharma or forgetfulness, as he mentions, no reflecting, each of those moments of thinking is conditioned.
He can't escape that fact, whatever he thinks.
And we discussed just the same point this afternoon at the yoga center, because people think, oh, well, they can go to a quiet place or think in a certain way to have wholesomeness. But even that moment of thinking now, it would be better in another place, or I should have wholesomeness. Even those moments of thinking are conditioned. So whether one goes or doesn't go, the seeing, the hearing, the thinking is conditioned. It can't be any other way at this moment. Tadao or Alan, do you have any points you'd like to bring up today?
Yes, I was wondering why the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths as the first sermon, and all dharmas are anatta as the second sermon, because it seems to me that you need to know that all dharmas are anatta before there can be any understanding at all. That's so crucial. Is there any reason why there is this order? Four Noble Truths first.
Is there any dukkha now?
Yeah, in theory, yes.
So at moment of teaching the truth to the Panchavakkhi, is there any seeing, hearing, was there?
Yes.
Is it dukkha, the first Ariya Satya?
Yes.
So what should be taught first?
But we need to know what is meant by reality first.
Okay, at that moment, there must be seeing. People there
Yes.
listening to the first sermon,
Yes.
was there no dukkha to be talked about, to be known, because it's there?
Yes, it is there. It's just not understood. It's not known.
So seeing arises and falls away by conditions, never to be returned, never to arise again. Is that the truth?
Yes.
To have less clinging to the idea of self. What were there at that very moment was taught, the truth of it as dukkha ariya satya.
Right.
But for those who didn't have accumulation, like the 5 disciples there, could they understand as them?
No.
That's why he taught this to this person and that to the other person, depending on the accumulation. Because just talk about seeing, there can be the direct understanding of seeing. Just the word seeing can bring about the understanding of the truth of that very moment, that it's there, not by anyone. And that's the meaning of anatta, see. So each word conform because it reality, its characteristic cannot be changed, the absolute truth. That's why the understanding of no one there begins to the end, becoming Satipana by conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Are we talking about Tukka Satya now too?
Yes.
See, begin to understand whether is it really Tukka, unseen at all, because it has to be seen by Panya. Whatever arises falls away. That's why the intellectual understanding brings about the understanding of the truth of what is there now. But the Panya is not enough yet to attain the absolute reality exactly there, just one reality at a time. So it's the I because they come together as something. And at this moment, is there no second truth?
Well, if this, the second truth isn't understood at this moment, yes.
Yeah, but not seen directly yet. See,
yes.
That's why it takes time to consider about. No one can change that as atta into anatta, but its characteristic is anatta. So only panya, the understanding, can understand that, while ignorance cannot understand that as anatta at all. So each word contains the meaning of anatta all the time. That's why if we don't forget that all dhammas are anatta, We study with the understanding of it's there. Chitta as chitta, Chittasika as chittasika. No one there at all. Little by little, to be the direct awareness.
And as you've said before, that if Dharma is understood, then anatta is understood automatically.
Little by little. So there are different levels of panya. After hearing the truth, do you still think that atta is there? Not anatta. But from hearing again and again what is there, understanding what's meant by the word anatta, not under anyone's control, it cannot belong to anyone because it's completely gone forever, never be found anywhere at all or any time after that. See, so the understanding of anatta, no one there begin to develop little by little until it can condition the direct awareness. So there is no doubt about how come to be direct awareness right now. No one makes it to arise at all, but it's there by conditions. Before there can be the understanding of conditions more and more, to have less and less clinging to the idea of self, which is so very strong from life to life, little by little. So it's now parami, this moment.
Yes.
If not for understanding, just to listen, wanting to understand this word or that word, is that parami?
Yes.
When there is the understanding, reality as not self, that is parami. Because the truth is no one there.
At what level then does it appear as not self? So we have pariyatti, so we understand intellectually there's no self, but realities are still self at that level. Then we have patipatti, the direct understanding, but as I understand it, even then there's the development of awareness, but it's still not clearly understood as not self. So realities appear better than before, they appear well. So is it at the level of Pativeda that there is the clear understanding that there's no one there? Just
Different stages again, see? But direct awareness is different from intellectual awareness.
Yes.
Now, see? And who can condition the Pativeda to arise? I try so hard, but it's impossible to have anything arise at will, only by conditions.
Yes.
That's why only panya, which begins to see the anatthaness, can be conditioned for direct awareness. It's just easy to understand the difference between direct awareness and intellectual understanding. For example, right now, at moment of seeing, see, is there any moment of direct awareness and how much it developed? See, panya knows satya, the truth of it. So satya is parami. If one change to, okay, I'll try more, it's wrong again.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the second truth is so difficult to know. It lurks in any moment, here and there, unknown all the time. Only panya can begin to see it better, well, and more, until it is different vipassana jnana. It means, or it indicates that the first vipassana jnana is not enough, because even is there, the arising and falling away has to be the higher vipassana jnana. Clear. No one.
At those moments of Vipassana Jnana, the idea of someone who has Vipassana Jnana isn't there, that's gone. It's just the clear understanding of reality. No one there at all.
What about sanya? There, akhanda. See, sanya khanda. It's not known yet.
Yes.
So it's like just the sample of the truth of reality that it's there, uncontrollable by conditions, no selection to have such and such to be object of direct awareness and understanding. So all anatta becomes clear depending on the level of understanding. No doubt and no mistake about the difference between intellectual sati and the direct sati. Has to be with panya of that reality which appears together with sati.
And why less? And presumably that conditions less attachment, that understanding.
When there's no understanding, it's I. But the understanding of no one, see, different from wrong understanding. And when it's there, there is less avijja, ignorance, and attachment, little by little. Like now, who knows? Is this moment of understanding is without parami. It's the parami. Panya, the understanding, is parami. Viriya is parami. Khanti is there too. Satya, the truth of it, has to be the absolute truth. No one at all. And nekama, keep away from akusala. Because akusala cannot understand the truth. No one. No matter how much the understanding is there, to understanding this as this, the understanding understands the anattana of reality. Anicca cannot be known now, cannot be directly experienced, but it's there for sure because it's now arisen by conditions and falls away instantly. Who knows? But Panya can begin to understand clearly and clearly the difference between the different reality, like intellectual sati. It's not the direct sati. And the vipassana jhana is not the moment of just develop the sati with understanding until it's there by conditions. There must be the understanding of anattana all the way, that it can eradicate whatever it's taken for self or thing in life, like now, from morning up to evening, or from life to life. It has to be more certain, more confidence of the truth.
The person who has become enlightened, then the idea, the wrong view of self is eradicated, but how can they still have conceit? Because that understanding that all realities are anatta, they have the perfect understanding, but they still have conceit. Conceit of what exactly?
Can conceit rise with titi?
Yes.
No.
No.
Lopa arises with titi. It's different moment from lopa arises with mana. They cannot arise together.
Okay. So there's still the idea for the Sotapanna, he can still, or she can still compare themselves with others.
As long as it's something, there can be still attachment, aversion, and the tit and mana. Even it's without titi anymore, but realities are different, and the conditions for such different realities still there to condition the moment of mana.
Different kinds of clinging with or without wrong views. So we read about 8 kinds of attachment. So 4 with wrong view, 4 without wrong view. So mana is another kind of clinging, but never with wrong view. And on the question of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, and the Buddha has said in other places that he teaches suffering and the end of suffering. So the understanding that any reality is impermanent and thereby dukkha means it's not subject to control. No one can make any reality last. No one can make any reality arise. So when we read about dukkha in the deepest sense, the impermanence of realities, it means that each one arises and falls away by conditions, not by anyone's will at all. So actually it's talking about anatta. So they all refer to the same realities. That which is impermanent and unsatisfactory is anatta. That which is anatta is impermanent and unsatisfactory.
You mentioned at the beginning of this session that there are different levels of anatta. Could you explain more about those different levels?
I think Nina mentioned it. I don't think I mentioned about different levels of anatta, different levels of understanding of anatta, perhaps.
Well, she said different levels of anatta, and also about seeing. She said seeing is very subtle. So maybe there's something else here, not just understanding of seeing, but seeing itself. Maybe so complicated how seeing comes into being by these conditions is meant.
I think Nina was referring to some comments that Jan might have made last week. So if there's the idea of, or the mention of seeing as subtle, it means the understanding of seeing is subtle, and different levels of understanding.
She said seeing. I think when we consider how the conditions for seeing are there, when there is visible object and eye sense, even eye sense is conditioned by karma, and seeing itself is conditioned by karma. So maybe Ajahn means there are so different complicated conditions before seeing can arise.
And this is why it's difficult to understand realities, because the understanding has to develop and each reality falls away instantly. But different levels of anatta, I think it refers to different levels of understanding of the nature of anatta, of reality, like we can just think and repeat all dharmas are anatta or seeing is anatta. But that the understanding has to develop to directly understand the anatta nature of seeing.
Can we say that nama, the reality or citta, is more difficult and more subtle than the object? Because, for example, we can understand sound as not belonging to us, but it's always I hear. So it's more difficult to understand citta because it's the idea of self is there all the time. So is that why perhaps it's more subtle, more difficult to understand citta, the reality which experiences?
We might say in general that namas are more difficult to understand because it's the idea of I see, I hear. But I think it's a trap if we think that there has to be understanding of visible object first, or there's any order. So I don't know if it's helpful to think like this, because it just depends on conditions now, what appears. No need to think what is difficult or not difficult. We know some realities appear and some don't appear, but who knows now what will appear by conditions. But maybe Ajahn would like to add more to your.
Does the rupa also appear as it is?
No.
Is it not subtle?
Well, we have some understanding of it. So sound is different from taste, which is different from heat. But those realities which experience sound, the reality which experiences visible object, they are also very different from each other, but no understanding at all.
So is the understanding is different? Intellectual understanding, as we just talked about it, but the characteristic, which is as not nothing at all, and just only one. See, hardness cannot be sweet. It cannot be that which is thin at all. See,
Mm-hmm.
as long as they do not appear as they are, there must be idea of them. More difficult or less, see, only thinking about that which hasn't appeared to be known as it is well, as it is.
Yes, just thinking, not the reality appearing by conditions.
Who is thinking about it's easier or it's more difficult? See, for khandhas, Vedana is there, not known yet. The sanya is there, not known yet. The sankhara, not known yet. And even the citta, not known yet. To understand that ignorance much more than we think, is that right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And is it benefit to understand the truth?
Yes.
Not to be careless or underestimate, that no need to have more khanti, which can develop to understand the truth. Otherwise, panya cannot be higher, stronger than this moment. So what is difficult?
What is difficult is knowing precisely the reality which appears.
As long as everything does not appear as it is, it's difficult to have it appear, not by will or by attachment or desire, but by conditions as no one there.
So as understanding grows, as intellectual understanding grows, actually the path becomes easier because it's conditioned, no trying. So immediately that becomes easier because without trying, without thinking of special time or place, it becomes easier. So the path is very easy for those with a good understanding.
And what's the truth?
That would be true. That if the more there is the clear understanding of the path, the easier the path is because it is not self.
Why?
because we make the path difficult because of the idea of self is there all the time. I want to have results for me.
For
So
you only.
that gets in the way. So that where we talked about the excuse earlier on, that's the idea of self getting in the way, making an excuse. Who's making the excuse? I'm making the excuse. So the idea of self is there. If there's less that, more understanding of when the idea of self coming in, then the path becomes easier. But that moment of appearing well is still difficult to, it's difficult to appear well. Because of lack of intellectual understanding, because lack of paramis.
And what make it appear?
The understanding of the Buddha's word.
That's right. So at
Just-
moment of understanding is the moment of letting go, little by little unknown, because no one can make it let go, to be let go. But the understanding, let go the ignorance and attachment, little by little.
Yes, it's the knife's handle, which is why if we understand that sutta about the knife's handle, that even that makes the path easier, because we realize that it takes great patience over a long period of time. So that sutta, as I suppose every sutta, leads to detachment.
So in the beginning, it's not the smooth way at all to have the development of understanding, because loka is there all the time to hinder or to change the idea from the right way to the wrong way. Try really hard to make it faster,
Yes.
quicker.
Yes. So I think it would be right to say that in the beginning, everybody goes wrong, because the idea of self is there naturally, and it will be very natural for the idea of self to go wrong, to try, etc. So that's why we need to listen a lot to put us in the right direction.
Because they are all not self, no one. See.
Mm-hmm.
And not just ideas about time or place, but even ideas about what is easier or what should be understood now. It can be the idea of self too. So many ways that self comes in, like the excuse or the focusing on particular reality, anything. Or rupa should be known first. Anything like this can be idea of self or a kind of practice.
And even the situation is that's taking realities for self, isn't it? That in a particular place, the forest or London, it's there's no place in hardness. It's just taking realities for something or somebody.
Just lost in the fantasy world of London and the underground, just forgetting about what appears now.
Yeah.
All the time we forget that life just exists in a moment. So we were also talking about this in our talk earlier, and I referred to the Visuddhimagga quote about chariot wheel just at one point, touching the ground at one point, and how life and pleasure and pain, everything is just at this very moment. So if there's no thinking about London, no thinking about rupas being easier, then There's just seeing now, just hearing, just touching hardness. They're just living in a fantasy all the time and forgetting about life just at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever arose a moment ago, whatever was thought about a moment ago is completely gone. And I think most people, like the people in the talk who are all new to listening to Dhamma as we understand it, everyone can understand that life exists now and there's just the present moment. But the point is, what is it that is appearing now? What is the reality now? Because people think I'm sitting on a sofa or I'm touching the computer, but we have to always come back to what is experienced now through the body sense, what is touched now, what is touching, is it I or is it just a moment of experiencing? Because without the understanding of these realities, it's impossible to understand anything about what is meant by anatta or no control.
Yes, because lots of people have the idea of living in the present, but actually living in the present isn't living in a room with lights and tables and chairs, because there's no understanding of the reality. So it's a lot more subtle than living in the present moment. It's living with the reality of the present moment. Yeah.
It's like the conventional ideas of being mindful. It has nothing to do with the understanding and awareness of realities now. The other point in the talk that people found very difficult was, without hearing the Buddha's teachings, people have the idea that they're leading quite a good life. Maybe they're not killing any insects and they're generally being kind. And they think that they're leading a pretty wholesome lifestyle, at least the people that were in the room with us. And it's only through the development of understanding that we realize how little kusala there is in a day, that most of the time, even now, there is ignorance and attachment following seeing and hearing. And so much of what we take for being wholesome or good or pure is actually just clinging to oneself. Like, oh, I'm being kind, helping the insects, or I'm being aware of my lifestyle or something like this. Actually, it's just all more clinging to oneself most of the time. But without the Buddha's teaching, we would have no idea.
And also, I guess it can accumulate so that you never know when you might go wrong, because it's each moment is conditioned. So you might lose your temper, and it only has to be once.
Anything can arise unexpectedly.
You don't know. It's dangerous to have akusala for yourself and others. So would you, I had a question last week that somebody said, oh, would the Buddha, if the Buddha arose today, could he teach with the same potential as he did 2,500 years ago in the modern world? Do you think that, I mean, we know that Buddhism is as relevant today as it is 2,500 years ago, but do you think that the world that it's more difficult for people to accept it now?
It doesn't have anything to do with whether the world is modern or not modern, but it has everything to do with the interest and understanding of the listeners and whether there are the accumulations to appreciate and understand what is taught. And the people who were there to listen to the Buddha at that time had such very highly developed kusala and paramis and understanding, ready to listen and become enlightened. So it just depends on the understanding of those who listen.
Right, yes, so it's
Do you
not a
have any
matter.
further comments, Ajahn?
What is the difference between now and 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago?
I think that one thing which is different is that we have, and many people have the deep-rooted belief that we are more advanced now than we were 2,500 years ago. We have technology, we have science, we can cure diseases. So there's a deeply rooted belief that as time goes on, we get to know more about the world, about reality. So that is a difference now to 2,500 years ago.
So what is meant by advance?
We are advanced in curing diseases. We're advanced in technology such as television, etc., etc. There's probably less violence now than there used to be 2,500 years ago. I don't know about that, but I think I've read statistics that actually we're slightly better than we were as a whole 2,500 years ago. Yeah. So that traditionally we have this, or many people have this belief that we are more advanced because of technology.
Is that only thinking?
It is thinking, but on the other hand, we can cure diseases. We can help people who are injured. So it's not just thinking.
What is it? Not just thinking.
If we cure a disease, then that person whose disease is cured will have less pain. So
What kind of disease in the Buddha's time?
they had lots of diseases in the Buddha's time, yes.
So what's the difference?
The diseases now can be cured, apart from COVID-19. But the
No
diseases,
matter at what time, ignorance is ignorance. And
yes,
understanding is understanding. So
yes,
we talk about the world's crisis, but where is it? If there is no seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, can there be such idea?
no,
So exactly the same, no matter in Buddha's time or now or in the future. Nothing more than seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and ignorance and right understanding, different realities, that's all. No one there at all. So what we are thinking about, is it real at that very moment, or it's only the object, the thought of the thinking, which is conditioned to think about that, just by conditions, no matter who is thinking, by conditions.
So when we have our technology, it's just thinking,
Yes, why not?
like the car,
It's not seeing, it's not hearing, see?
yes. So I think you've mentioned this once before, that we have in today's world more concepts, more ideas. Because 2,500 years ago there wasn't Facebook, there wasn't computer, but now we have these concepts. So it's just more ideas, but actually, yeah, the realities are the same.
More ignorance too. Taking it as so advancing, but it's only thinking. What about next life? The future at that very moment after death, it can be right now. What
Yeah.
about the advancing of the idea? See, no more.
So you said more ignorance. So you think that now there is more.
Because the thinking of advancing, see, not the truth of reality, no matter what thought is about. It's only a moment of thinking about that by conditions. Why the other people doesn't think like that at all. If there's no conditions for such thinking about advancing cannot arise.
Yes.
It's the object of thinking only, like visible object is the object of seeing, that's all. no one, no reality, because it's only that story, the thought about this and that as something permanent.
More ignorance and more clinging, and also mana, the idea of being more advanced, or society being more advanced. It's so no understanding of anything at all, those times of thinking like that.
Yes, and more, and of course the thinking is delusion, really, isn't it? As you
It's
say.
completely delusional.
Yes. So it would appear that is, that there's more delusion now than there was at the Buddha's time because of that. Or can we say that necessarily? It is just not understanding the difference between thinking and reality.
But anyway, what's the point of even trying to compare or work out if there's more or less? Because actually we know that whether then or now, what's important is the understanding of what is heard of the Buddha's teachings. So we know that for those like Sariputta, they could understand very quickly, and some understood very slowly, and some didn't understand at all. So like now, some can understand a little, but most don't understand anything. But how does it help anything? We know that the goal is the development of understanding, nothing to do with modern technology or advancement or science or anything else.
I think that the importance of it is that people won't begin to understand. They won't even start to understand because of this great belief in science. They won't even they won't even listen. And so that might be, that's a question which comes up. We're more advanced. Well, actually, no, we're not more advanced. So we have to know how to handle the question. So because it's a question that's put by other people, that we are more advanced now. 2,500 years ago, they weren't more advanced. But actually, no, that's not right. So so we need to be able to handle the question, if you like.
So it comes back to what the reality is at this moment. So is seeing now any different from seeing 2,500 years ago? Is seeing here any different from seeing in other countries or in other societies? So those who developed understanding of the truths had nothing to do with how rich or medically trained or whether they were scientists or beggars. It all comes back to the understanding of life at this very moment. So when talking to those people or any other people, what about what is real at this moment? Seeing now, the hearing now. So it's like when we gave the talk to the group who all come from a lot of them have studied Vedanta and Hindu scriptures and different religions, but what's important is just the beginning of understanding of what life is at this very moment. Otherwise, it's just arguments about which one is better or which one is more advanced, and it doesn't get anywhere at all.
Yes. That's why listening is not only is it really important, but it's actually quite difficult because people tend to put their own views. I think it's quite difficult for a person to listen to the Dharma. For ordinary people, that's what I find. People argue, they put their own points of view, they talk about science, but of course, unless you listen, you can't understand.
And especially difficult is the understanding of dharmas as anatta now, not in anyone's control, because people would like to control life. They're used to thinking they can control what happens, but beginning to understand that seeing now is not in anyone's control and just arises by conditions is very difficult.
And that's related again to the idea of self, isn't it? Because a strong attachment to the idea of self, who can make decisions, who can,
regulate life, who can study
think.
science, who can
Yeah.
advance technology, but
Yeah.
they're just different dharmas
Mhm.
of no importance whatsoever, because they all fall away instantly.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there now dukkha?
It's not understood.
Not understood is dukkha, and understanding it's also dukkha.
Yes.
So what is dukkha? Is that dukkha now?
Yes, because it's the
Who
arising and falling away of realities. Any reality, ignorance, or even understanding.
knows?
Panya knows.
Right. Is the panya enough
No.
to directly see? But it's there as it is. The truth can be known, but not
Yes.
to ignorance, but to panya only.
Yes.
Letting go, little by little, the ignorance and the idea of self and attachment. Is this the way to enlightenment?
Yes.
Is there any other way?
No.
That is the confidence of the truth. No matter we're thinking about advancing or whatever, it's just only there at the moment of thinking. But is there still something advanced, like we just said or talk about advancement?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Is the advancement or advance of anything now?
Now, a tiny little bit of advancing, because we discuss a little bit more intellectual understanding. So there is the advancement, just a little bit more turning towards understanding the reality of the present moment, not just thinking about it.
But in truth, nothing is left. This is dukkha. Not everyone knows. But that which does arise and falls away forever, never to return at all, is it dukkha? Because of there is attachment to that. See?
Yes.
Not thinking about this at all. Even we think a lot about advancing this and that, but actually no understanding. So what is the benefit in life each moment is to understand the truth. That's why we call the Buddha, and Buddha teachings, because the teachings about the truth of what is now appearing as it is.
Mm-hmm.
More confidence, more sattva.
Yes, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so conventional ideas of advancement have nothing to do with understanding dharmas at all.
No, it's just thinking.
Yeah, like conventional ideas of advances in science or advances in engineering. It's just conventional advancement, but nothing at all to do with advances in understanding Dharma or anything related to understanding.
No, and they're stuck with the idea of self, which is a massive problem. And that cannot alleviate that problem. So it's, I suppose, empty, because it cannot deal with the root cause of our problems.
They don't understand what the real problems are in life. So in the deepest sense, the real problems in life are not the lack of scientific advancement or the different kinds of disease, but the real diseases, the real problems are the lobha, dosa, moha.
Yes, yeah.
So whatever methods or ideas they have, nothing is a cure for lobha, dosa, and moha except the development of understanding.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
understanding has to begin with the understanding of those dhammas as anatta.
If we answer dukkha is the arising and falling away of realities, it is only rather superficial what we know, because it is only vipassana jnana, a higher one, that can directly understand it. So before that, we really don't understand what is dukkha.
But this is what pariyatti is. It begins to understanding at the level intellectually, like the seeing now. It's not the seeing a moment ago, and the seeing that hasn't come yet is different from the seeing now, and what is seen now is quite different from what was seen an instant ago. So beginning to consider that what we take for life has nothing permanent, nothing substantial, everything is empty and gone instantly. Even at the intellectual understanding, it is the wise reflecting, it is the beginning of panya which develops until it is the direct understanding, and the direct understanding of the arising and falling away of dhammas. But without the careful considering and reflecting about realities now which don't last an instant and which are anatta, there couldn't be the higher understanding. This is why we have to hear and consider so often.
Can Ajahn help us to consider this more? But I say this with Loba also.
Just don't forget about anatta-ness. So we study with the understanding of not me. It's only Dhamma like Citta, Cittasika, all are Dhammas. No one can change its characteristic. No one can make it arise. So life exists only in a moment and then never to arise again. No Nina, no Sujin, no one at all. See, we can be Nina. You can be Nina only in this life. What about last life and next life? No more. Completely gone. Absolutely. Next life, if you cannot understand or see what is there now, it's just new person without any understanding. But when there is the understanding, it is accumulation. It accumulates on and on and on, no matter in what life. Even the horse of the Buddha, Prince Siddhartha, see, after his death, he died from this life and was born in the heaven. He came back to see the Buddha, and then he became Sotapanna. See? So we don't know at all what will be and what is conditioned from life to life, accumulated, ready to be any moment when the condition is ripe or enough for its arising. What is next moment is not known, only by conditions. So there will be less mana, see. It's so useless to accumulate such akusala, to have pride about this and that. They are there, like seeing is seeing, hearing is hearing, doesn't belong to anyone at all. So the best moment in this life is moment of understanding, but even that is not in anyone's control at all. See, depending on conditions. If there is regret about not listening, not attending the discussion or so on, it's I, see. But what is there? It's not me. is the higher degree of understanding the truth. It let go the idea of self little by little, because the understanding of that, whatever is there, is conditioned. So now the accumulation of understanding is developing from moment to moment. It depends on other conditions too, to condition this or that to arise from accumulation. Lobha, or understanding, or ditthi, or mana, and so on. Do you regret? See, sometimes by condition. But it's not you. It does not belong to anyone at all. Conditions condition its arising and then falling away. And this samsara, just around seeing and hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, only of this life, what is there, which is experience. That's all. This moment is gone completely. Everything, no one. Without such understanding of the truth of each moment, there must be wrong understanding and ignorance and all other kinds of kilesa, akusala, like mana, see, attachment, aversion, and so on. The understanding of this moment is the panya barami, which will lead to other barami, because of less attachment and aversion and ignorance by conditions. This is not an excuse, but it's the truth. And the panya can understand the truth, otherwise it's excused from the understanding, wrong understanding of self. There is no one, so not anyone with the idea of I can do. So it's the advancing of that we take for all. It's more advanced benefit, or just not understanding, and then there can be moment of understanding. What's better? And this is what we say, respect the truth. Whom did Buddha expect? No one, only the truth of Dhamma. That's why each word comes from understanding the benefit of Satya. Is white lie dangerous? See, even that must be seen. It's disadvantage. It doesn't bring any understanding. That's why panya leads to all kinds of kusala, little by little, in different ways, by conditions. Instead of thinking about the advancement of technology and science and so on, what about the thinking about the truth instead of thinking about the advancement? Panya sees that, understands that, but ignorance doesn't have any idea of the truth. So it's kind of respect advancement of technology, of science, see? But they are gone when there is no thinking. So the thought or the thinking rules the world or oneself. Because now, where's the world? Where's the crisis of the world? It's here and now, each one, each moment of the arising and falling away of the absolute truth. So there can be the moment of thinking about letting go, attachment, and ignorance in a day. When there's no condition for Panya to think about that, no idea about that at all. Even thinking is conditioned. So the truth is the truth. What about what is seen now? Not Nina, not anyone. See it. So how wrong understanding with the idea of someone or something is there, accumulated each moment, this moment, and from now on to other life, on and on, without the teachings of the Buddha. That's why there is the more understanding of the truth, the absolute truth of what is there now, condition, more respect to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha because of understanding the virtues of the greatest one as Buddha and his teachings. And those who follow the teachings respect the truth, never change it. Pay respect to the Buddha means study carefully. Don't just think about it by oneself, which is against the teachings of the Buddha, like meditation center, see? And those who do not study carefully have misunderstanding the words of him. So there are so many crises about not understanding the teachings. And in Tipitaka it says that those who change his word, it's like hurting him, harming his body. So where is his body? Dhamma, or words from his teaching, is that the body which can be seen and can be known. His great virtues, wisdom, compassion, virtues. That's why there can be conditions for a moment to just thinking, reflecting wisely, carefully about his words, which is not easy to understand because it goes deeper and deeper and deeper to condition the panya, which let go attachment to what appears because it's gone. But attachment hinders the understanding of the arising and falling away. So it's not aware of that which is now, which arises and falls away, but it pays attention to the what is there, next one, not knowing that it's not the same one as a moment ago. And when we talk about just a moment or a second or split seconds, reality is shorter than that. So it does not appear well as it is. To understand that there is not yet that degree of understanding can condition virya and khanti and satya to be more and more conditions for enlightenment to the truth, which is now at this very moment. Only the truth can be known as it is as truth. No one at all. So no matter when you heard the harsh word or undesirable objects, no one there. Be kind, generous, forgive, see, more and more, with understanding.
Sophia, I think that you are a doctor. Did you have any comments on the discussion about advances in modern science and the Dharma?
Oh, it's a very difficult question. Do you hear me? No.
Yes. Hi, Sophia. Sophia
Yes,
is in Poland, Ajahn.
Yes, the advancement of science and Dhamma. This is the question.
Yes.
I know that there is most difficult because they are like two different ways of perception of the world or and our consciousness and understanding of the world and looking for the truth. So I think that they are totally separated. This is my understanding.
Completely different goals and
Completely
aims.
different, that are uncomparable.
Yes.
So what do you think?
And the point that was being discussed was that some people think that now world is more advanced and more modern, so they think that the Buddha's teaching is out of date, but we were talking about how what is real now is just the same as during the Buddha's time, and the understanding that has to be developed is exactly the same. There's nothing at all to do with advances in science or technology or engineering, for example, because this is just the world of concepts,
Yes.
not the understanding of dharmas.
Yes. And more Dhamma for me is like a spiritual development, which is the part of human personality and growth. So I think that it's very important, especially when it is such a fast development of science, to have that we have not only spiritual, not only intellectual development and technological development, but we have to be still grow in spiritual part of our personality, of our identity, that we become more like a human being, more like a person. But maybe it is my approach, because I graduated psychology and then management. So, but in psychology, we have the several types of the several elements of the identity of the person. Now, spiritual and different is spiritual, and difficult it is physical, physiological, and social communication, dealing with other people. That all of them, they create a system of a human being. So it is a different approach. I think that it's Buddhist and Dhamma.
I also trained as a psychologist, but the point is that all these other ideas of science or any advancement without any understanding of the truth of reality at this moment, then
yes, absolutely.
there can never be any lessening of ignorance or clinging at all.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Does anyone have any last question for Ajahn? Because time is almost up. Alberto or Zita or Zhao, anyone else have anything they would like to ask you?
I find it very helpful when Ajahn says that we are only this person so short, only in this life, and next life no more. Because I tried to help someone who had lost his wife, but I don't think he was very open to it because he had never heard the Dhamma.
It takes time for anyone to think carefully, wisely on what is heard before there can be the understanding. For example, now, if I ask, is seeing advanced now? See, it takes time to think what is seeing and what is meant by advancement. No understanding of anything at all about its truth. But there is the idea of that as one has accumulated to think in terms of science or of whatever is there. See? But it's only thinking. Is there any advancement of thinking? Thinking has to be only thinking, no matter what it is thinking about. But it can just think, experience the idea, conditioned by sanya and object which is experienced, to take it for something all the time. But what about the understanding of the absolute truth of this moment, that seeing is conditioned to arise? As soon as it has risen, it sees and then it's gone completely, absolutely, never again to arise. See? And is this true or not? The impermanence, the arising of falling away, the dukkha of each reality, no one can change its truth at all. So, is it the advancement of thinking, of seeing? See, thinking has to be only seeing has to be only seeing. It cannot think at all. So even the word advancement, what is the truth? Only different ideas, the thought, the object of thinking about this and that, which is heard and seen, that's all. And it's gone, they are gone, everything is gone. It cannot last at all. At all. So what is life? The impermanency of everything which is there when it's conditioned to arise and then fall away, that's all. Who can change this truth? See, everyone is going to die. Is that not true? Can the scientists change? Can it be developed, advanced to understand the way not to die? impossible. So what is meant by ignorance and what is meant by wisdom or right understanding, see? And who can condition the right understanding? Only the words of the Buddha from his enlightenment. So the word enlightenment is so great. It's not just learning or understanding, just very superficially, but the truth, the absolute truth, is in each moment now. So what appears now? It indicates or it shows that no one is there at all. Seeing is there, sees, and that which is seen is seen, that's all. Never to arise again. So is it good or is benefit to cling to that which is no more at all? So even the Araya Satya, the Four Noble Truths, has to be experienced by Panya only, not only by thinking. That is not enough to eradicate the accumulation of the idea of self in samsara, so great, so much. How can anyone take it away out from citta? See, only Panya learns to understand, little by little, to understand the truth as the truth. No one, if this is forgotten, even hearing now, is I. See, any moment, not enough understanding until Panya develops little by little to be more and more confidence. That's why the Sotapanna has more confidence than the one who hasn't enlightened yet. And that is not self. See, completely gone. Nothing arises is the word or the meaning of anatta because of no conditions, no cause to make or to condition anything to arise, no more. The end of dukkha, because directly experience the arising and falling away, which hasn't been known or experienced directly at all. But those who listen to the teachings begin to let go little by little until it conditions the moment of direct awareness with understanding, which based on the intellectual understanding to understand that moment as it is, clearer and clearer, little by little. But it takes quite a long, long time to be khanti parami. Not giving up to develop the understanding to be able, high enough, great enough to experience directly the truth right now. So what we are talking about, we will lead to direct awareness of what is there now. Otherwise, we just talk about seeing, hearing, but not direct understanding of any reality now, because the panya is not developed to that degree yet. Until then, always until then, by barami, which is no one. Because barami is the only way to let go the idea of self, to eradicate the wrong understanding completely, absolutely. So it needs from the moment of hearing to consider that actually what is now heard is careful considering to condition the moment of have more confidence on the truth, not go away from this moment, but it always led by ignorance and attachment to that which appears, which is not the previous moment. That's why we know the point of studying the teachings, to experience the truth, because it's only the absolute truth. No one can change it. It's not me, not anyone, not anything. It's only that which arises by conditions, like hardness, see? What hardness belongs to me? No one. It's not my body. It's not my finger. It's not my hair. Only hardness, see? Not enough hearing to condition the moment of understanding what is now appearing yet. But one day there must be conditions from hearing again and again, understanding better and better, clearer and clearer, little by little, to understand the difference between the intellectual understanding and the direct understanding right now. See, so natural to confirm the truth that no one can make it arise. It's there. So what can be the object is that which is conditioned to arise. If it does not arise, it cannot appear. It's not there to be known.
Anumodana, Ajahn, Sawadika. I think it's time for everyone to have a rest.
สวัสดีค่ะทุกคนค่ะ
Sawadika.
Thank you.
ขอบคุณครับอาจารย์
สวัสดีค่ะ